hustlers, road players, tournament champions. Hear the stories, get their advice, learn about their lives. Our host, Joey Ryan, brings you an inside look at the professional pool player. You're listening to the Pool Player Podcast, brought to you by Pool Scene 365.
Hey guys, Joey Ryan. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode with Scott Frost. This episode started back in September with a recording that Scott and I did where we lost about 40 minutes of video, but I still had the audio from it, and I really debated for about 2 weeks whether to roll with it or to go back and re-record it, but I don't like to do things halfway, and I called Scott back, and he was really gracious to agree to meet up again and finish the interview with full video. So you'll notice about halfway through, you'll see kind of a change in clothes, even a hairstyle for me. But we got it recorded, and I think you're gonna love it. So to tell you a little bit about Scott before we get started, he's the former US Open One Pocket champion, former Derby City One Pocket champion, and Derby City Ring Game champion. He's also a Legends of One Pocket champion, Music City Open champion. He won the US Bar Table Championship, and he's the 18-time Arizona State Champion. He's also, in 2019, was elected into the One Pocket Hall of Fame. So great accomplishments, and that's just naming a few of them. But some of the topics that we dive into today are really how he got started in pool, what was his biggest score. We go into who he would rank as his One Pocket top 5 right now, what he does outside of pool, and I think the thing you're going to appreciate most are some of the stories that he tells. Great storyteller, and I think you're really going to enjoy this. So ladies and gentlemen, Scott Frost.
Well, what's up, everybody? What's up, Joey?
Oh, not much, man. I'm really excited to have you on. When I told people I was doing a podcast, people know I live in Arizona. You were the number one requested person that people wanted to hear from. I don't know if you know that.
That's pretty cool. Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you, by the way, for doing this. This is obviously a brilliant idea and a great way to spread the love of the game, and that's what's most important.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Tell us how you got started in pool. People want to hear your story.
I grew up in a small town called Urbandale, Iowa. It was a suburb of Des Moines, and I was my whole family. None of my family was involved in pool. They were all. My dad was a banker. My mom was in sales, and I was in sports. Since I was a young child, I played soccer, baseball, basketball, and football year round. And when I had time, I did a little fishing. But I grew into myself and became first team All-State point guard basketball player in high school in my senior year. And I was a real hard worker. But my brother was in the military. He was in the Air Force. He's a little older than I am. He'd gotten really sick, had some type of bad virus, and he was stationed in Rome, New York. I missed one practice. My mom wrote me a note. The rules were in this basketball league in high school is that you had to get a note in order to miss a practice. And if you missed a practice, you could go to the game, but you couldn't dress up. No big deal, right? I was the hardest worker on the team. I literally won every suicide. I did everything I could. I was the first one to get there, last one to leave. But my coach had a son that was competing as point guard as well. And he always had it out for me, even though his son and I were friends. So anyway, we go take this quick trip to see my brother. He makes it through. He's healthy today. Everything went fine. I get back on a Friday afternoon. I come to school. We're getting ready to go to the game, and we're all getting on the bus. And I had my gym bag over. I just never forget it because I had it over my left shoulder. And the reason I'll never forget it is a defining moment in my life. I don't know if it was a good or bad moment, but it was a defining moment in my life. And I was walking up the steps to the bus, and the coach is the last one to get on the bus at all times. I'm walking up the steps, and he yells, "Hey, Frost, what the hell do you think you're doing?" And I turned around, and basically he was insinuating, why the hell am I getting on the bus? And I was like, I was just speechless. I was actually devastated. I was floored because I had a feeling he was going to try and pull something. I just had this feeling. So as my bag was on the left shoulder, I grabbed it with my right arm, and I whipped it at him. and I never touched another basketball competitively to this day. So the regrets or the wonder of what would have been when my body filled out, you never know, because I was real skinny. I was 165 or so, but I handled the ball real well. And so I don't know. But anyway, so later that day, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you're pretty tall too.
Yeah, I'm
Six
like
six
six three,
couple. Yeah,
six
6'3".
three, but I was probably around 6'1" and a half, 6'2" then, and I could dunk uh, on a good day. I had struggles every now and then. I never tried it in a game, but I could dunk in practice. But anyway, so ironically, this is why it's all so wild. Is later that day, we have to take 2 bus stops to get to my good friend's house, or my old good friend, my high school buddy. His name was Corey Bird. And we were at the second bus stop, and right caddy corner is a pool hall called Encounters. And it was owned by a world champion player named Don McCoy, who Keith McCready knows very, very well. There's actually a YouTube video of Efren Reyes saying Don McCoy was the best money player in the 70s and 80s. But anyway, so he talks me into sneaking in there, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it could have been a strip club too. Encounters, huh?
Yeah, the name. That's why I've actually done a lot of other podcasts and other interviews, and the pool room's no longer there. I've actually used a different name. I actually hesitated here too, because I'm like,
Yeah.
people probably are like, but the name never suited anything like that. It was actually really clean. It had like 12 bar tables and 10 9-footers. It was not like that. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
actually a really clean place. They just served beer and wine. It was pretty cool.
Well, I tell you, as the hard feelings that you have for your basketball coach, it's probably nowhere near the rest of the pool playing public that's lost to you and lost money to you, right? Because
Yeah,
you
I
might
don't.
not have ever gotten involved in pool, you know.
Well, right. Yeah, and I don't really have hard feelings towards them anymore, obviously, right? Because I am a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. I really do believe that everything happens for a reason. I have to believe that because I've had some pretty tough things, and I think we all have in our life had
Yeah.
tough things happen, and you have to believe that there's a reason for it, and it's part of life.
Yeah. What brought you down to Arizona?
Jeez, what did bring me down here? I was on the road with Gabe Owen, who's a U.S. Open 9-ball winner and great player in his time. He got off and got involved in some other things and doesn't really play as much as he used to, but he was a heck of a player in his day. But we were on the road. What was I doing down here? I think we stopped through here on the way to Vegas, and I never showed my face. The people that are local here talk about this story quite a bit because I was known. Gabe wasn't really well known back then, so I stayed in the hotel and kind of told him where to go. And I met Angel Paglia, and she was a player here back then. And I'd met her. I think we were on our way to Vegas for a tournament, me and Gabe. And we decided to stop here. And I stayed locked up in the hotel room because I didn't want to knock Gabe's action. And actually made, we did really, really well. But during that time, I got to know Angel better, and we became pretty tight. We became really close. And I never said I'd leave my parents or leave my hometown because I love it, and I still do, and I miss it all the time. And I said I'd never leave my hometown, but I did. I moved down here to surprise Angel like 4 or 5 months after that. But we were on the road down here, and then I met Angel Pagula, and I moved down here for that.
Wow.
And I never left.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing that fascinates me most about you is, when I was starting to play pool and I was never near your level, but as I was getting
Yeah.
better, people would tell me, they would say, "Hey, you should really learn one pocket. You could sneak up on so many people, you can make so much money." And for me, I don't know, I just it was an acquired taste, and I think it
Sure.
is for a lot of players. They start off playing rotation, they're firing balls in from everywhere, and then you play somebody that you can give the 7 to and 9 ball, and they beat you in one pocket, they just torture you, and you're like,
Yes.
"Whoa, I got to learn this game,"
Yes.
but you kind of started the other way, where you were more of a one pocket specialist. And the funny thing, I'll tell you this, because we're friends and hopefully you don't get mad at me,
Yeah.
but I remember thinking like, can Scott even play rotation? Like maybe I can take a shot at him. And then I was like,
Right.
oh no, I cannot take a shot at him. He definitely is a world-class player in rotation as well. It's just your specialty is one pocket. So how did you get started specializing in one pocket?
Well, for the record, actually, I started out playing 9 ball, but most people think that I started out playing one pocket because, well, I'll just tell a story real quick. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of similar to what you're saying, but when I was playing, I started in '93. Corey Dewell actually just sent me something for our junior. We played junior nationals together in '93. My goodness gracious! So in '93 is when I really started. When I started playing pool, and I played 9 ball from '93, '94, probably around '95. And there was a guy in the pool room that I could give probably the 6, 7, 8, 9 to. He was a pro golfer.
Yeah.
And that's actually the first guy that I met when I snuck in the pool room. Him and I became partners gambling. We made a lot of money together. But anyway, I was giving him a big spots. I actually reminded myself of Bobby Emmons on steroids. Like my cue ball was probably pretty terrible, but I center ball punched everything, but I never missed. I shot lights out, but I played 9 ball all the time. So I was beating my buddy, and we weren't gambling real high, but I was so competitive it didn't matter. I think we might have been playing 5 a game or whatever it was. And when I say 5 a game, I'm talking about one pocket because he wouldn't play me 9 ball anymore. And I couldn't beat the guy playing even. And he wasn't really good, right? And it drove me nuts. And I didn't like the game, but I forced myself to play the game. And then, so what was I? I was probably just turning 18 actually when I started playing the game. But my reasoning really behind playing the game was back then that there was no cell phones, there was no internet. Like you didn't know who people were. Like
Yeah.
if I went to a town, nobody was going to know who the hell I was. Even if I was somebody that was just coming on the scene, they're probably not going to know who I was. So my whole plan was that I could play one pocket for a couple years in my hometown and then hit the road and maybe make some money because the research I'd done, I was gathering that one pocket was for older players and more experienced players, right? So that's what my whole plan was. So my mom bought me a $500 pool table. It did have slate, but it was 8-foot table. 2 of the pockets were ripped out, and I learned playing one pocket mostly on my own. I would play myself. I had one VCR tape of Parika and Efren, and it was one pocket match. That's all I had, and I would watch every second of that match and replay it. And I'd probably watch it for a couple of years, and I'd go downstairs and I'd play myself, but my opponent would be Efren. So like I'd pretend I was in the finals of a world championship. I'd break the balls, and then it would be Efren's shot. Then it would be my shot, and I'd get 70 to 80 shots into the game and still know whose turn it was. So I was
Wow.
pretty obsessed with that. And I found what I didn't realize I was doing is I was actually innovating the game. I was shooting shots that when I would go to the pool room, everybody was telling me, no.
Wrong shot.
Don't do that. That's not the
Yeah.
right shot, right? And that actually manifested into something even much bigger and became my own style, which was really power one pocket that nobody back then, even Keith McCready, which I hear he might be coming on sooner or later, but even him, he wasn't, and he was probably of his day the most aggressive player there was.
Yeah.
Ronnie Allen in the 70s and 60s, he was the most aggressive player. But now it's ridiculous. These kids now, they're ultra aggressive, and I guess that's the way I was. Now that I'm older, I'm a little bit more tentative to do the wrong things because I can move really well as well. So when you get
Yeah.
knowledge, the stupidity tends to go out the window,
Yeah.
right? When you miss that ball enough times and it costs
Yep.
you enough money, you start to realize that maybe it is the wrong shot. But
Yeah.
going back to that, so I put all my energy from basketball, I mean all of it, into pool, and that's what I did. I was hurt, uh, and I guess I just took the love that I had from basketball and turned it into pool, because in basketball, see, it was cold there like most of the time. And I had a mini basketball court in my parents' basement. I didn't live in some $1 million house or anything like that, but I had the mini basketball, and I had a free throw line, and I had little mini basketball games down there. So when it was snowing out, I would be playing downstairs. I played basketball 8 to 10 hours a day, even through school. So I just took all that energy and put it into pool. My parents weren't real thrilled about that at all. Yeah, that was a tough deal.
I can imagine.
I was making, I'll just tell it real quick. I had a window in my bedroom, and it was about a 6-foot drop. So the guy that was a pro golfer, I wasn't old enough, I didn't have my license or a car yet. He would come, I would pretend I went to sleep. And I had this Halloween mask. It was a gorilla, but it had like the perfect hair. I cut it, and it had like hair. It looked just like mine. So I put a basketball inside the mask, a smaller basketball, and then I made a dummy in my bed. And Tom,
That's awesome.
His name was Tom. He had milk cartons in his trunk. We had this all planned out. And this happened 4 or 5 times a week. I don't know how I graduated high school, but I did. But he'd bring the milk cartons, set 3 of them on the ground. I'd jump out the window, and off we went. And I'd be back home. We'd eat breakfast after the pool room. I'd be back home at 3:30 or 4 in the morning, get up at 7 for school. And I did this for like 2 years. Jeez. And, it was tough. I barely graduated. I had like an outrageous number of days missed. And my parents knew I was up to something. They actually, that all came to a halt, actually. My mom caught me. She had to do my
I was going to ask if you got caught.
Yeah. She caught me. She had to do my laundry, and she came in one night, and she's like, I don't know, but she found the dummy and figured it out. And she actually come running down to the pool room and caught me. And I was shooting, and I was using a sneaky Pete back then. And I was playing a guy 50-game 8-ball. And there was a back door to the pool room encounters, and I was shooting the 8-ball. And it's a true story. Anybody in Des Moines that's still alive and tell the story. She comes running through the back door, and she screams over like 8 tables, and it's like the whole place froze. She said, "Scott D. Frost, if you shoot that 8-ball, I'm going to break that cue in half and then bust it over your head." And we're betting 50 a game, right? Jeez. So I shoot the 8. The 8, and she comes running through everybody. And it's like time stopped. And she snapped the cue right over her knee and dragged me by my shoulder out the back door.
No way.
Yeah,
that's nuts. Yeah. We haven't even really started talking about pool too much, and these stories are already great. I can't wait till we start talking about pool. When was the moment that you feel like you arrived? So it could have been like a tournament, or it could have been like a year or a couple year period where you just felt like, hey, I'm here. I can play with anybody.
Well, there was several moments where I felt like I hadn't arrived, but the thing back then, how old are you, Joey?
48.
Okay,
I was trying to keep that a secret.
No kidding. Yeah. Well, I mean, then you did grow up in the era, right? When did you start playing pool?
I started when I was 5 years old.
Okay, so you understand that no internet and cameras and all. Well, so for me, I lived in a small town, and here's how I found out. The owner of Encounters, Don McCoy, not that he was a rude guy, but he was really to himself, and everybody bugged him to play, and I know the feeling. And everybody bugged him to play, and he was kind of past his years, right? He was like over it, burnt out, didn't really want to play pool. He wanted to do other things. And he actually committed to me 2 years of playing, and he made a deal with me. So this is kind of where I'm getting to it with a roundabout story. We would play $10 a game. I didn't want a spot. I never wanted a spot from anybody back then. I just refused it. If I couldn't beat you even, I didn't want to. I just kept coming after you. But we play $10 a game, one pocket, from noon to 5 p.m., 5 days a week. And in the first year, I owed him $4,700, and this is true, which is fine. And I paid him.
You just kept a running tab. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the deal. I paid him at the end of the year. That was the deal.
Wow.
But that's when he started telling me. Well, we didn't finish the year. He was real competitive, and we're still close. He actually has a place out here in Sun Valley now.
Oh, wow.
But that's when I started realizing that I could do some damage, because nobody knew me, right? Nobody had really heard of me. I was only coming up on 19 years old. So really, I felt pretty good about it. And he was telling me, he knew everybody, Keith McCready, Buddy Hall, they'd all come through to try to beat him back in the day. And they didn't get there. And so he was telling me, man, it's time. You're about ready. And so that's kind of when I guess kind of when I knew.
Yeah. What was the favorite, your all-time favorite match of your career?
It would have to be when I played Viffer, Dippy Dave, the guy that from Poker After Dark. I mean, there's two. That one and the first time I beat Efren at the Derby on the TV table with everybody watching. That was big. But both of those probably.
Yeah.
And I beat Viffer out of 1.2 million. And we started with 50,000. I gave him 18-4. I was actually at a tournament in Mobile, Alabama. And I won the one pocket. Oh, wait. No, I think it was a bank ring game. I won the bank ring game and the bar table tournament. And Jeremy Jones and all the guys were there. Tough bar table tournament. I finally won that event. And Billy and Cardona called me. And he said, hey, what are you doing? And I said, I'm in Mobile, getting ready to probably play somebody. And he says, I need you to get out here. And I'm like, what's up? And he's like, well, we're in Vegas. And this Viffer is getting 18-4 from everybody, and he's busting them. He beat Bustamante out of 70,000. He beat Alex real bad. He beat Corey Deuel out of 40 or 50. He beat like all these guys, right? And Billy felt like I might be able to outrun it because I just had a knack of outrunning big spots sometimes. And so we made a plan. I flew out there the next day, and Viffer was ready to play me because he'd beaten everybody. He knew I was playing as good as anybody, but still. So Billy, me, and Jack Cooney made a plan. Jack Cooney was involved. And I think Eddie Kelly was involved. But anyway, we put up 50,000, right? And that's all we were going to shoot at. And we were going to play 10 ahead for 50,000. And if we lose, we're done. And if we win, I already knew what I was doing. I'm double because Viffer wants to double every time. And I'm doubling. So long story. Oh, shoot. Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, guys. I've got this propped up on fishing line. and like some type of
That's
elephant.
awesome.
But anyway, so we play 10 ahead for 50,000, and it was pool sharks back then, which is now griffs. But we played down in that pit, and I loved that pit because it was just I knew that the eyes were on me, and I always played good when there was big eyes on me. And I played him 10 ahead for 50,000. At that time, I think pretty close to the biggest money I'd ever played for. This was a little over 10 years ago. And I beat him in like an hour and 45 minutes.
Wow.
It was unreal. Nobody believed it. I beat him quick. And I beat him so quick. Maybe it was a fluke set, but I beat him real quick. And I didn't even have time to look up at Billy. And I already knew what he was going to do. Viffer says, bet 100. And I didn't even look up at Billy. I said, bet. And I beat him in like 4 hours. Yeah. Right? So I'm a 150,000 winner. And here I am with like $20 in my pocket. It was freaking crazy.
That's awesome.
So he's like, I think he says, bet 300 tomorrow. And I didn't even know. I couldn't even talk. So I said, deal with Billy. And we come back the next day. Long story short, I never lost a set. I beat him like 11 10 ahead sets out of 1.2 million. And I played unbelievable. I've never played like that. Lenny saw part of that. I ran 18 and out 3 times in one set. And it wasn't the 18 and out where you spot one ball and shoot it, spot one ball. I had to spot 6. And then I would cut one, play bank shape, bank it, and then shoot it straight in. And I did that 3 times in one set. So that was probably the biggest rush of my career, no doubt. I mean, I think the biggest score of the 21st century.
Yeah, I mean, for a pool player, that's like a golden opportunity, right? Because you spend so many years grinding it out, maybe a couple thousand here, a couple thousand there. And man, it was almost like that was your stage and that was your opportunity. And it's like, hey, this is life changing. If I just bear down here and play my best, this is something that doesn't come around every day.
No, and it doesn't, and it never does. Maybe once in a lifetime. But I did play for tons of money, tons of money in my career. So, like I said, the $50,000 set might have been the highest, but I'd played a lot of. I've probably played. I've played a lot of $20,000 and $30,000 sets in
Yeah.
my career, like a lot, a lot.
Well,
But that was a life-changing moment. Yeah,
that
definitely.
kind of leads me to my next question because, I remember when I first moved to Arizona, went down to Freezers, great place, really enjoyed it, met you, and you were like the businessman, like, hey, welcome
Yeah,
to Freezers, shaking hands, kissing babies, it was like,
right.
and I'm like, wow, what a nice guy, this guy's awesome. And then we decided to play some, $100 one pocket. And it's like something just switched, and you went to like Mr. Intensity. And I'm like, this guy's scaring the crap out of me, you know? And then after we were done, we shake hands. I paid you money, of course. But then after that, you're back to nice guy. And so I guess my question is that something that just clicks in you? Is it a conscious decision, where you're pretty damn intimidating? I got to tell you. And, is it, do
Yeah.
you try to do that or does it just happen?
No, I don't. That's not like part of my plan. I've heard this from close friends and my woman. She's like, you need to calm down. You're too intense sometimes when you play people. Um, I can promise you, and I can look everybody dead in the screen. That's not my plan. Probably, I think it carried over from basketball, right? Like, I think but I'm like people that know me, like when I'm fishing or I'm doing anything that's got some type of competitiveness in it. And I
Mhm.
don't know, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing because a lot of people get a bad representation of who I am because I come from a really good, respectable family and I'm a totally different person in my house
Mhm.
and around my friends outside of pool than I am on that damn green felt, as we used to call it. So it just happens. Just to answer your question, it just happens. It's definitely not planned. But I do feel looking back in my younger years, I went through some stuff, man. And I went on the road most of the time by myself because every time I went with a partner, I either got robbed or it got really ugly. And, there's a lot of jealousy there. If I'm playing more than the other guy, it just rarely works when you're with somebody.
Yeah.
Partnerships on the road are tough, very tough.
Yeah.
So it just was natural, man, and that was just, and it still is. And the funny thing is, I try to find that now because when I try to play, and it's hard. I feel like I was a trained warrior my whole life, and I was in battle. That's what I looked like. I looked at it like I was a fighter. I
Yeah.
felt like it because when you're in the ring, you're getting punched and you're punching back, and when you're playing a big money set, you're going to go through those swings, right? I'm going to
Yeah.
get hit. I'm going to get hit several times, and I'm going to have to hit back. And that's kind of the way I train. I just felt like that's what I relate pool to fighting a lot, actually. And I'm not like a fighter, but I think that there's a lot of resemblances there.
Yeah, no, that's a good analogy. So I have this new segment that I want to do, and you're my guinea pig. I'm going to try it out on you.
Oh
Okay.
boy. Oh boy.
And I'm calling it the speed round. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to name a player, and I'm going to give you one word, the first word that comes to mind about the player I say. No compound words, no two words, no like parentheses with a little phrase, just
One word.
one word. You got
And
it?
how quick do I got to say it? Like I could say
I'll give you
something really
five
dumb.
seconds. Yeah, you
Okay.
could. You could. That's
Okay.
kind of the
All right.
point.
Let's
We can
have
have some
God.
fun with this. Okay, you
All
ready?
right.
First player.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alex Pagulayan.
Intelligent.
Danny Smith.
Loose.
Josh Roberts.
Practice.
Tony Chohan.
Aggressive.
That was fun. I like that.
Yeah, that's really good. I
Yeah.
actually, that's really good because that's really good. Actually, I think you should, with the next guy, maybe do 10. I'm serious because
Oh,
I
really?
think you can get a lot out of that. With one word, you can get a lot out of that. Because
Yeah.
if you followed up and went back to probably why I said that, there's a lot to that, right?
Yeah.
People are like, practice, what the hell? But, that's good,
Yeah.
Joey. I like it. Very
Yeah.
creative.
So tell me, do you think Alex might be the most intelligent player out there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Efren's not playing. Yeah, he's the most intelligent player. I'm not going to say he's the best because There's a lot of great players, and he's getting older. He's my age. But, I beat what people don't know, and this drives me crazy. And Eric is like, it shouldn't drive you crazy. I don't know why you let it bug you, but it drives me freaking crazy. I beat Alex many times. He quit playing me, playing one pocket. He quit playing me.
So guys, last time Scott and I were recording this, his video froze, and then he got it unfrozen, but the recording kept it frozen, and we lost like 40 minutes of content. And so Scott was gracious enough to agree to redo this part of the interview. So we're going to pick up right where we left off. And Scott, if you would, you were telling a story about how Alex wouldn't play you at a certain time. He had gotten to the point where he wasn't going to play you anymore. And then you were at Casino, Arizona, and he called you. What happened?
So Alex had called me. I'm at the poker room, and he had called me. And I'm literally like in a hand, and I had to put the phone down. I told him, hold on, I'm in a hand. I'll be right there. And then I picked the phone up, and he's like, hey, Scott, I can play you if you want to play a pretty big set. And I'm like, okay, let's play. And he's like, well, there's a couple conditions. He's like, I've been playing on this table in L.A. It's a Brunswick, which I haven't played on Brunswicks in a long time. And I've been playing Shane Van Boening 1,000 a game for about a month. And I was like, ooh. But I was like, yeah, okay. I'll make a phone call, and I'll see if I can play you. And I called my Billy and Cardona and Jack Cooney, who they always bet on me or staked me. And I called them, and they were like, yeah, no problem. Let's go play. The problem was that I probably wasn't 100% forthright with them. I don't know that would have mattered. I hadn't been playing. I don't know that I lied to them, but I was in the freaking poker room. And to me, always in poker and pool never mixed, because your wires get crossed. You're really gambling when you're playing poker, right? You're in a casino. I always felt like it didn't mix. For me, it didn't mix. It might for other people. But anyway, so we go ahead, and they realize that I'm not playing, right? And I do tell them that. It's not like I ever hid anything from them. But at the moment when I called them, I don't think that they knew I wasn't playing. But we get down there, and my team feels like I can overcome it, because I was just dominating pretty much back then. Anybody I did end up playing at the time, I was pretty much dominating. And he beat me. Like, he wiped the floor with me. Like, he beat me quick. The table was a lot slower. I wasn't quite used to it. And I just I didn't play the way I should have played, and he played really well. You could tell that he knew the table like the back of his hand. And I could feel that, right? Like, I could feel it. So he beats me, and I can't remember what we're betting. And to me, see, that everybody's always worried about the freaking bet. And I apologize, but for me and most top players, the bet is just like a bonus, right? Like, for us, it's about winning. Like, for me, it was always about winning, even though in certain situations I did everything for the money. But it really, I think we're betting 20,000 anyway. So we make an appointment to play. From there, I'm like, you know what? You'll play me on a diamond again now, right? You just throttled me. And I didn't know if it was fortune or that he was just on that table. And to my whole point there on this is, when the student becomes the teacher, like, he was picking stuff up from me, like a lot of stuff, man. I wish I had like a little Etch-a-Sketch or something that I could do here. Like, he was 2-round kicking behind balls and sticking the cue ball. He was ticking off balls and putting me behind certain balls that he wasn't doing before. And I could see that he was picking little things up, and not just from me, but from a lot of top players. He was really soaking in the game. And so we make an appointment to play a big match in Vegas. I think it was maybe within 3 months from that match in LA, 3 to 4 months, which is pretty soon with all the marketing and everything that they have to do. So we're in Vegas now, and we're at Good Times on Charleston. We're at Good Times on Charleston. They have a little pit. Table is perfect. I really like the table. Alex liked the table. Tight table. I think 4 1/8, but played tighter because older cloth. we ended up playing 138 games. We played 6 days, I believe it was. It was 7 ahead for like 20. I'm not sure what the total bet was. Maybe the bet got lowered. To me, once again, that doesn't really matter. But we played like 138 games, and the whole time through that match, it was a grueling match, like really freaking grueling. I guarantee, Alex and I kind of laugh about it now. We've talked about it a few times. Like, it took years off of both of our lives. Like, it was freaking brutal, really intense. You're talking like a lot of hours, a lot of days where, you could hear a pin drop. I had Floyd Mayweather's trainer there because a buddy of mine works with his trainer. He's passed away now, Rafa Garcia, R.I.P. But I had a lot of people there in my corner, and the expectations probably overwhelmed me as well. They tend to do that because there's always those expectations. But going back to Alex, that's where the transition, and I'm sure playing Shane had a lot to do with it too. The transition of him becoming a really top one-pocket player, really understanding the game, and really becoming probably the most intelligent player in the game. Of course he can shoot. We can all shoot. Like, that's great. But he understood shots that come up in the game that most people aren't going to see. And he knew when to do it, right? Like, that's the key to one pocket, is shooting the right shot at the right time. Everybody can see the right shot at the wrong time, but shooting the right shot at the right time. And he became really good at it. And I believe and I told him after that match, I said, you're the best. You're the best player in the world now. Which he was, I guess. You play 6 days, 138 games, and at that point I hadn't been beaten in many years in a big set. And that includes Efren. And then all of a sudden, Alex calls me up out of the frickin' blue, beats me in L.A., and then beats me in a long, grueling set in Las Vegas. But I was never surprised about that with Alex, right? Like, he's the Lion, right? His nickname's the Lion, and he's not, champions, world champions don't take getting beat lightly, right? Like, they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to go crawl in a hole, or they're going to go find a way to get back at that guy. And that's what I always did, right? You could beat me 1,000 times. Sooner or later, I'm going to come back, and when I do beat you, I've got your number, right? Like, that's kind of how it went, always in the pool world. But that's where Alex became a top, well, the best, in my opinion, the best player. And did it hurt my game? I don't really know that it hurt my game. The problem with the game in general, even now, not with me personally, I could probably get plenty of games, but you just don't have a lot of matches, right? Like, you play a match and then you wait 6 months, and then you play a match and you wait 4 months, and then you play a match and you wait 8 months, or you play a match and you wait a year. That's just not, like, when you're a pool player, you want to, pardon my French, you want to get off, right? Like, you want to get off. You're looking for that freaking rush. You're always chasing that same rush and that same mode to be in, that kill mode, and it just slowly, when you get older, that desire to find that and chase that when there's so much time in between and so much BS, it tends to, the spark tends to kind of fizzle out, and it does, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with age and other things in life, but that's where Alex made his jump, and credit to the dude, man. He's an amazing player, all around.
What was your most crushing defeat?
Crushing defeat.
I think we've talked in the past, and you had a reality show idea that I think hit you pretty hard.
Yeah, that was big. I thought you were talking crushing defeat on the pool table. It was probably that match in L.A. Because that was the catalyst to, if you want to say, my downfall. See, the problem with that, and I'll go back to my crushing defeat, but the problem with that match in L.A. was, and everybody everybody that comes up to me and Googles me or doesn't really know me, then Googles me, oh, I watched you play Alex in LA. Well, the problem is the matches I beat Alex before weren't on YouTube, right? So this freaking match happens to be the only big match on YouTube, and I get slaughtered, but that's how it is. Crushing the Feet was that we had I was working with an executive producer for A&E, and A&E and History are owned by the same people. So I was working for a top executive producer there, and we worked on this show, man, a long time. And I had to keep it under wraps. We worked on it for about 7 years, did a ton of filming. The name of the show was called Money Players. A lot of people have seen the trailer. Joey, I think you've seen the trailer. I've sent it to a lot of people. But we worked really hard on it, really hard. And it was a real reality show. There wasn't anything scripted or set up. And I did think at the time that this country could have used this show because there was a lot more than just pool in it, right? There was gambling, the way of life, hotel rooms, watching your back, like the real parts of the road. And as literally the same month period as I'm getting ready to sign on the dotted line, and I am down there in LA, I'll never forget it. I even threw up outside before or after this happened. I think I was so nervous I threw up before. When I get super, super nervous, I throw up. It doesn't happen too often, but I'm talking super nervous. I'll throw up. Nobody knows, but now you know. So we go to sign the paperwork, but my exec producer's name was Stuart Swezzy, and we're still friends on Facebook. Shout out to Stuart Swezzy. He says, we got to go upstairs and talk to the boss. And his mood was somber. Like, I could tell he just wasn't talking. And I didn't know if he couldn't talk about something or what the deal was. We go up to sit in front of this desk, and Stuart pulls out this video on his phone. His boss had led to this video. And it was the show True TV Hustlers. And that show was a reality show. If you remember, that was totally scripted. It had a low budget, and it was based out of Steinway Billiards in New York, which it wasn't a great show. You know, I know they were trying to do their best. Just wasn't a great show, and the problem is that the ratings on that show bombed, and it was on True TV. So all these networks know each other, right? They know the ratings of each other, and they know that's their business. Well, the ratings on that show bombed, and these producers don't know whether that's a good pool show or not compared to what we're doing, really, because they're not pool players. And he's like, dude, we can't take this chance. And my producer, Stuart Swezzy, was disgusted, too. He'd put in like 7 years of freaking editing and all this hard work, and he had all this back film and he went everywhere. Like, he was at Derby, he was down south with me, he was at the Derby in Tunica. He was everywhere. We had a ton of film, Vegas, all sorts of film. But that fell through after like 7 years, and it right at the time when I was going to sign this contract, and we had like 7 other guys on this show, and we were going to bring in a bunch more, like a bunch. So that fell through, and that would God, I don't even know how long ago that's been now. But it had to be at least 10 years ago. I lived in the apartment back then. I was still with Erica, probably 10 years ago. So that was pretty crushing. Because it wasn't about the money, but exposing the life, who knows where it could have taken the game, really. Could have really helped in America, which pool needs help in America.
Yeah, that sounds heartbreaking. I know just from doing this podcast, you put your heart and soul into something. You got an idea, and you get all your momentum going towards it, and to kind of be let down like that at the end, that must have been really tough.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we moved on. Just moved on. It took me a few weeks, but I just dusted myself off and moved on.
Yeah. So I imagine you have a road story or two that you could share with the audience, something that might entertain them a little bit?
Let's see. Road story or two. Okay. I think I was 20. I think I was 20 or 21, and I'd hooked up with Ronnie Wiseman. And back then, Ronnie was taking Corey Deuel around. He was taking Alex around, and he was taking. Well, then he started taking me around. I kind of came up on the scene, and Ronnie was no dummy, right? Like, he could see the young top guys coming along, and he would latch on to them. And Ronnie was good. Don't get me wrong. He knew a lot of good places. He knew where the money was, and he got a hold of me, and we decided to hit the road. But he had some real good marks in his eyesights, and so we go to a spot in Ocala, Florida. In Ocala, Florida, there was this guy named Tony Baloney, and he was actually a mobster. He owned a string of Italian restaurants, and he was around 71 or 72 years old. But he was in good shape, and he was one of them hardcore, in good shape, small Italian guys that, like, he was just a rough around the edges type guy, but clean cut. And he was just like a little bulldog, right? And but the funny thing is, when we get to this pool room, it was upstairs, so we had to go up these stairs. I mean, I just never forget. I have a lot of good memories in my career, but this was a good one. So we go up these stairs, and as soon as I get up the stairs, Jack Cooney, and a lot of people, nowadays the pool has changed so much, and it's unfortunate, but Jack Cooney was one of my idols, like my superheroes. I'd never got to meet him or anything like that. We get up these stairs, and Jack and Barbara Cooney are sitting over in a corner, and they've got a cooler. They've got their own cooler with water and ice and sodas. And I'll lead on to that. The reason they had their own coolers so that somebody couldn't put something in their drink. We did that in a lot of places. This spot was actually known for Mickey and You, or that there's different terms, but where the bartender could put something in your drink, and you wouldn't know it. Like, you would feel different, but you would feel like you feel good, but you couldn't make a ball. And there's a drug out there that does that. So when I come up the stairs, I see Jack, and I'm like, oh my God, and I want to go say hi to him, but we're on the road, and I don't want to knock him. So I just turned left, and as I turned left, my heart's freaking pounding, and I'm like, man, if Jack is here, I'm in the right place, right? Like, there's a reason he's here. So we actually spent probably about a week there. Before, actually, I'll be honest with you, probably spent 5 days, 4 or 5 days, before I got down with Tony Baloney. Now, I know we re-recorded this show, but you could go back and play the old one, and this is how you can kind of fact check my story, because my numbers and everything are all exactly right, because I just never will forget it. We had $7,200, and we're going to play $1,000 a game, and Ronnie makes the freaking game for me, and I'm giving him 9-6 the break, and his fouls don't count. So that means he gets the break. He goes to 6, I go to 9, and he can push the cue ball anywhere he wants, any shot, and he doesn't get a penalty for it, right? And when he scratches, he doesn't get a penalty for it. And I've never given up that game, so there's a certain style to giving up that game. But anyway, I lose the first 7 games. I'm absolutely clueless. We only have 7,200. I'm absolutely clueless to this game. I'm kind of like flustered mentally. I don't know where to leave the guy. I feel like the spot's bigger than it really was. I was just giving it too much respect. So Ronnie is not happy. I'm down 7,000, $1,000 a game, and we've got $200 to get back to Detroit, Michigan, and it wasn't any good. So anyway, he's like, "Come here," in his big deep voice, "Come here." So I go over there. He's like, "We gotta quit," And as I'm talking to him, I'm like, "Dude, I feel like I turn around, I hear the clicking of the balls, and I turn around, and Tony Baloney broke and kissed off a ball and scratch, and a ball jumped up in front of my, like, in where I could make it. I had ball in hand. And I'm like, dude, I got to play this game. And I don't even listen to Ronnie's response, right? I'm a kid. I'm 20 years old. Yeah. But I shot straight, man. And I go back, and 76, we played 76 hours. No, wait. Yeah, I think was the longest I'd ever played. I think I was 86,000 winner.
Wow.
We were down to our last barrel, and I was 86,000 up. And I ended up getting up a lot more than that. We lost. Ronnie asked me to lose 20,000 back intentionally. So while I'm playing Tony Baloney, the guy's 71, 72 years old, and he was shooting at my pocket. Like, he's so delirious that he was shooting at my pocket. Now, mind you, he's a mobster. And by this time, I think word had gotten out around town, but he had 2 sons, and his kids were not small. He was small, his kids were, or maybe they weren't his sons, you know, now that I think about it. But these were young, dark-complected guys, and they were just dead quiet in leather jackets watching us play, and we're into like the 60th, 70th hour. And Ronnie had me lose like 20,000 back, and finally, you know, I kept telling Tony, I said, Tony, man, look at your legs. His legs were blue. They were blue. Like, he was in bad shape. So anyway, long story short, they had to carry him down the stairs, these 2 guys, and they took him straight to the hospital. And so that, but I won a lot of money. I would be lying if I told you the exact amount, but I know I was up 86,000. I was exhausted, and I didn't sleep for like another 24 hours. I was just like, Ronnie was passed out, and I can remember him snoring, and I'm laying on my bed looking at the ceiling, and it's dead quiet. I'm like, oh my God, I'm rich.
Wow.
I'm thinking I'm rich. I was just a kid. I was 20 years old, right? So that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. And then, you know, I mean, I've got ups. That was a fun story, and then I've got a dangerous story too that I'll tell real quick. I know my stories kind of tend to drag on forever, but I was in Detroit, and there was a pool room called Oak Park, and it was at 9 Mile in Dequindre. So you've heard of 8 Mile, where Emily grew up. This was right next door, and I spent like 2 years there in this area. It was a rough room, but there was big money in there, big money. And I'm playing this guy, Black Sam. And everybody actually, Black Sam still goes to the Derby. Black Sam's still around. Cool guy, not a bad guy, but he loves to gamble. Not a top player, but makes games and will bet pretty high. And I was playing him, but the whole reason I was playing him is that there was this guy backing him, and the guy's name was Ivan. The guy just had, every night I went to the pool room, Ivan would come up to me, and he maybe just kind of liked me, and we hit it off. He just had buckets of freaking money. He'd pull his pockets out, and there was just stuff. He couldn't spend his money fast enough. And so I was beating him out of 2, 3, 5,000 every single night. I flew my girlfriend out there. Not the girl I'm with now, but this other girl way back then. I think I was around 23 or 24 back then. So we're playing, and I'm like camped out there now. I've got one of them freaking Homewood Suites things where it's got a kitchenette, and like I'm going to the shopping center every day and getting shoes and this and that. But Ivan and I became pretty good friends, right? But I never asked him what he did for his money. But I started getting this funny feeling. And we went to dinner the night before this happened. He took me and my girlfriend and Black Sam. We all went and had a steak somewhere. And then we went to the pool room and played that night. And then the next night, we're playing. And if you can imagine a pool room, and we're in the back corner of the pool room. And there's always a back door to every freaking pool room, it seems like. And he would just go out the back door and smoke a cigarette, right? Like, we just would go in and out the back door and smoke cigarettes. And this night, Ivan's like, we took a quick break. I wasn't in a good mood. I was losing. And this night, Ivan asked me, he's like, hey, you want to come take a drag? And I'm like, no, man, I'm good. I was pissed. Like, I think Sam stole a game from me or something, and I was down like 1,200 or something like that. I just wasn't I was losing. So I turned him down to go out and take a drag of a cigarette with him, and the next thing you know, I hear this big bang. He'd walked out, and I didn't know what the heck the bang was, and it was a steel door in a big brick building. So that's all I heard was a bang. And I'm the first one to the door. Like, I go straight to the door, and I don't see anything but these 2 trucks taking off. And I look down, and it's Ivan. And he's looking up at me, and he's missing his hand. his hand got blown off over the building. Anyway, he got murdered. They rushed him, and he put his hand up to stop the gunfire. That was obviously his natural reaction. And they killed him. But I held him. I pulled him inside, and he bled all over me. He was missing a big chunk out of his neck. But the point to this is that I would have been killed there too if I'd have gone outside. But that was a interesting time, right? Like he ended up doing some bad things and stole a bunch of high-end drugs, from what I understand, from the wrong people. And I'd had that suspicion, like, and here my dumbasses, pardon my language, running around to dinner with him, and just to make some money, you know.
Yeah.
But that's just one story. That's how it can be great, like down in Florida, and then that's how it can be really bad, and it can turn really quick. You know, I've had some bad stuff like go down, you know, bad, like really bad.
Yeah.
You know, for me, like not good, but those days really aren't like that anymore. Like those days are pretty much long gone, and I attribute that to cell phones, camera phones, the internet, and you know, casinos. You know, really, when camera phones came out and the internet, it almost shut off overnight.
Yeah,
it was weird. It was really weird.
Well, Scott, thanks for sharing that. Well, both
Absolutely.
Those stories and that one, you know, especially. I mean, that had to be pretty tough to go through. So let me lighten it up a little bit. I know you haven't, you know, since Freezers, you know, you haven't been playing as much over the last, you know, 4 years or 3 or 4 years. But I'm still going to put you in my top 5 one pocket players. And, you know, just because of what you've accomplished. And I think if you hit balls for, you know, a month at any given time, you got to be right in the conversation. So who would you say are the other 4 in the top 5?
I would say Dennis, Alex. Damn, I said this. Dennis, Alex, Bustamante, Chohan. Dennis, Alex, Bustamante, Chohan.
Yeah. What about Shane? Like, if Shane really dedicated himself to one pocket, you think he could be in that top 5?
No doubt. But he didn't, right? I mean, whatabouts are like, in my opinion, you know. I was playing a guy at Freezers today, and he said, "Man, if I'd have done this, I'd have made that ball." And I'm like, "Dude, if Michael Jordan won black, he wouldn't have been a superstar." It's like, I'm just saying, like, yeah, sure, yeah, Shane would have been great if he would have worked at that part of his game, but he didn't. So he became a world champion 9-ball player. But yeah, Shane, no doubt, no discredit to Shane. He definitely would have been. Or listen. Shane won the Derby one pocket, I think, 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
It took me my whole life to win it once. Well, I did make the finals the year before. But, yeah, Shane's a great player at the game. He's a great player at one pocket. But he just needs to play it. Like you said, he needs to play for 3 weeks, a month. If I played every day for 3 weeks to a month where I'm kind of gambling a little bit, I think I'm back there somewhere. You know I can beat the top guys. There's no doubt. There is no doubt. But Shane would have been a great player if that's all he played. But I don't fault him for choosing the path he chose. You know, he's done really well for himself.
Yeah. So I know you guys go fishing a lot, you and Shane.
Yeah.
Or
I
talk about it.
Talked to him.
They do. Yeah. So who's the better fisherman?
Oh God, Joey, you're brutal, man. Shane does nothing but holds the pole out there. Like, I work. Like, I deal with temperatures and structure and drop-offs and all sorts of different things. Bait runs, lakes turning over. No, Shane loves to fish. It's just a different style. He actually caught his record fish, his what we call PB, personal best, 39-inch lake trout today. And he sent me pictures. And it's funny, and I'm going to call him out. He asked me if I could be the judge between him and Darren Appleton, who I think, because I think they both know that I'm the man when it comes to fishing. So they look to me to be the judge, right? So that's obvious that I'm the man.
Yeah, that's funny.
So Shane's like, God, I wish I could pull this up. I don't even care. But he's like, who's the better fisherman, me or Darren Appleton? Darren's catching them damn ugly ass carp, and I'm over here catching these lake trout. And I'm like, well, first off, carp's a bottom feeder, so it shouldn't even count.
They fight good, though. They fight good.
Yeah, but they're not even a game fish, dude.
I know.
People catch carp and throw them up in the bank. Okay.
Yeah.
So, no, anyway, I won't go there. No, but fishing was fun. And Shane probably won't admit to this, but he didn't fish until I got to him. I begged him. I was like, dude, you have to start doing something else. You have to start doing something else. So he finally starts fishing. He starts ice fishing. And then I'm like, dude, you have to get a boat. Dude, you have to get a boat. No, I don't want a boat. Yeah, I don't want a boat. Next thing I know, he's posting pictures of his boat. So he loves fishing, and there's a lot of similarities to fishing and pool. You get in your zone, and you're chasing one object, and, you know, there's a lot. It goes deep, you know. I have some good friends, and they're like, what do you like about fishing? And some people just don't get it, you know, and those friends probably know who they are. Yeah. But, you know, you fish a little bit, right, Joey?
Yeah. My first big purchase was a bass boat, a used bass boat.
That's right.
Yeah, and you know, I bought that when I was 18, and there was a little reservoir near my parents' house, and you know, I used to go out on that thing, and you know, I caught a 4-pound largemouth one time, and for Maryland, that's not bad, you know.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a huge fish in Maryland.
I got to get out with you one day, and you know, you take me around and get me a 10-pounder. You know, I see some of those fish you're holding.
Yeah, I got to get me a 10-pounder. It's been tough. It's been tough lately. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, but to my point, like, you know, that fishing is there's fishing and then there's fishing, right? Like, you can really get into it and it'll get you. It'll get you. And I've done it my whole life. I just like to do it.
Yeah. So Scott, I think everybody knows that, you know, 3-4 years ago, you went through a shift, right? From, you know, pretty much full-time pool player to really businessman. And, you know, with freezers, and there's other business endeavors that you've been involved with lately. And I just want to give you a chance to kind of talk about those, as well as some of your sponsors, and just like let you give a shout out.
Thanks, man. And then props to you, dude. You're blowing up, dude. You're the next Joe Rogan in the pool world, bro. You are the Joe Rogan in the pool world, bro.
I'm Joey Rogan.
Joey Rogan.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no doubt. So I hope that a lot of people watch your podcast, because you've got a heck of a podcast. You know, I just want people to understand that when you go through things in life and you do something you love and then it becomes a job, sooner or later that transition is going to happen. And I came from a really good family. Like, I always promised my family I wouldn't end up like somebody, you know, I'm not going to name names, but I'm just not going to be that guy that takes his last dying breath trying to make the 9 ball at 96 years old or whatever with a cigarette hanging in my mouth. Just not that guy. So I mentally made that shift like when I was around 40 years old. I'd always told myself that I'm going to transition to other things in life when I get to that age. And so I guess that's kind of the problem maybe with my pool game now. Well, I don't know. I've got a match coming up, so we'll see. But I made that decision, and I decided to build freezers. My partner, Jason Chance, is really the one behind it. I designed it, developed it. I was kind of the brainchild, finding the location, designing it, and all that. And that's still going to rock. It's going to be better than ever. We took over more space, and it's almost done. They were in a redesign. The problem is when COVID hit, we started the redesign, but when COVID hit, the permits stopped, right? So once the thing kind of let up, the permits started again, and it's almost complete. But beyond that, you know, I'm always kind of into something, and I'm starting a fireworks business. A friend of mine owns several Christmas tree farms. Shout out Sean Brooks. And, you know, I worked for him in the summer for free, and we really just wanted to build, and it's not illegal what I'm doing there. So I'm starting that business, have another business that I can't talk about that's really going to be a great business. You'll see it. Everybody will see it. We're about to launch that. And, so I'm busy. And then I do have a lot of sponsors. I need to thank QB Custom Cues. I've been with Ken Thyman for a long time. And who was I? Jack Circa. I was playing Jack, training with Jack at Freezers the other day. And Jack said, God, I think QB Custom Cues might be the most underrated cue maker in the world. And he really is a great cue maker. So shout out to my man Ken Thyman and QB Custom Cues out of St. Louis. Been with me for years. And I never sold my cue like most of them.
Yeah.
Simonis and Aramith, Ivan Lee with Simonis and Aramith. They don't sponsor pool players, so I'm blessed to have them behind me. I'm looking at my tournament shirt, guys, just so you know, so that I can. And I've got.
Hey, that's
Brian
a good
Davis.
Problem, Scott. When you have to look them all up, some people are dying to get one.
No. They got cobwebs on. I'm actually dusting the cobwebs off them. But I got to thank Mike Gwynn. Gwynn and Realty one of our local guys here that support me and support pool in general, dude. The guy, he's as good as they get. I've got to thank Peggy with GQ. She's been behind me so many times. So Peggy, God bless you. Acme, Omega Billiard Products, Acme Q Cases, Mike Hong, he's the man. They do a lot of great stuff with pool, and they make a really good product. So, those are just my sponsors in Diamond Tables. Actually, Greg Sullivan, the owner of Diamond, called me today, and I'm supposed to call him back. We're working on designing a one-pocket table. They called me to be involved, so that's kind of cool. So, and then another thing that I'm doing, and I got to thank one of my main sponsors, if you want to call them a sponsor, is Tony Bloom and Julie Bloom. But Julie Bloom and Royalty Core Grills, they're a custom truck grill and headache rack company out of Eugene, Oregon. And let me tell you something, guys. I can get you a great price, but it's a top-of-the-line product. The company's been in existence for over a decade, actually well over a decade, and it's a premium product, lifetime warranty, solid stainless steel, painted, powder-coated, chromed, hand-polished, really high-end product. They use Vision X light bars in their grills, only compared to by Rigid. So top-of-the-line stuff. That's royaltycore.com, or you can look us up on Facebook. I run all the social media pages. They're Facebook and IG. So if you're interested in a truck grill, please hit me up. I'll give you 10% off if you get it from this, all right?
Oh, nice. I love it. A discount code.
I might get fired, actually. I might get fired.
Well, Scott, I tell you, I've seen you post the pictures of those grills.
Yeah.
And, I don't own a truck. I own a small Infinity. I love it. It's a quick little car. It takes me around.
Car.
But seeing those grills, I'm like, man, I should get a truck so I could have one of those grills because they're awesome.
Thanks,
they're really nice. Really nice.
They build a beautiful product.
Well, hey, Scott, thank you so much. I mean, for the viewers at home that are watching this, I mean, Scott and I really went through it with the technology, but he was so good to come back, record the second half of this, and I appreciate that. So, Scott, I want to give you an opportunity, just any final thoughts that you have for your fans out there or just anything in general.
No, man, I hope that people keep playing the game, and don't get stagnant. Don't play the same guy every night, If you want to get better, take it serious. Don't jerk around. If you've got a table in your house, don't walk by it and just start banging balls around. Dedicate a certain amount of time every week to being serious. And if you're trying to get better, if you really want to get better, you'll find a way. But if you're just saying it with that air coming out of your mouth and no feeling behind it, then it's probably not going to happen. But if you really want to get better, you'll make it happen. Find a way to do it. If you guys have questions, everybody knows I message them back. No matter where you are in the country or in the world, I always try to message people back. And if people have questions, they can always reach out to me. I am always willing to help, always. So just, keep playing one pocket, man. It's the best game on the planet. All right, man. Thank you, Joey. And thanks to everybody out there. The best podcast. Share it, like it, and subscribe.